Hello again, everyone. Deflect here, Firm but Fair Gaming. I came to bring you a video as I haven't done one in a long time. I haven't gone through at all the Mythic Affixes. I haven't gone through Mythic Plus or talked about who's on top of the leaderboard now, or what specs are best, or what's meta, or what's really fun to play. I do enjoy Mythic Plus, and that is where I spend most of my time. I put out a lot of videos, mainly build videos towards Mythic Plus. I do have KSM on a ton of different characters, and I really just enjoy that aspect of the game. I want to put out on this video out because 10.1 has been announced. Like if we knew it was coming, but they are putting it to the PTR. They said hopefully the end of this week, which means it will probably be hit live in about 3 weeks, roughly 3 weeks, give or take. So you're putting it around the end of March, beginning of April at some point. They might launch it just in time for the April holiday, but we'll have to wait and see because there's no official launch date yet. I wanted to start talking about the affixes because I hear good things and bad things about affixes. Some people love them, some people hate them, some people have combinations where they really don't like. And they are looking at the Mythic Plus affixes. The new Dragonflight dungeons require a ton of attention. There's a lot of kicks, there's a lot of stuns, there's just a lot of mechanics or mechanic heavy dungeons. So adding some of the affixes that don't let you do the mechanics as well, or don't let you do damage when when you can, instead of you now have a quaking affix that's going to stop you from doing damage when you have to do damage. And thundering is also another one where you had to run out and get these thundering debuffs to drop, and then you get a buff for 15 seconds, or you have a buff for 15 seconds, you got to drop the debuff, whatever you want to look. So it's you want to do the thundering, watching out for quaking, watching out for all the stuff on the ground in the dungeon, watching out for your kicks, watching out for your stuns. It can be a lot in Mythic Plus, and Blizzard has announced that they are reviewing that. Season 2 is announced they are not going to have a seasonal affix. So no thundering in Season 2. There will be no affix for Season 2, which is good. I made some notes. You can read through it as you like. It's on Wowhead. But they said because all the dungeons, you're learning the dungeons, it just adds a lot, which it does. It adds a lot at the beginning. As you get through like week 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10, it starts to get a little easier to manage it. But there are some affixes that definitely hold you up. And they are going to be reviewing the level 7 affix bucket, which is quaking, which is grievous, which is volcanic, storming, explosives. I did hear someone else, I think it was Nagora, say that they should get a little buff for hitting explosives. I think that's a great idea. These dungeons require a lot of tank focus. They require a ton of healing. It's not like Shadowlands where the healer kind of could work in a whole lot of damage. Yes, there is opportunity to get in damage, but there is a lot of healing that goes with these dungeons as well. So getting all the explosives like in a Ruby can be very difficult. Now, it's not so bad if you have a whole team focusing on them, but if you play in pugs, I know a lot of pugs that the DPS just don't like to get explosives. So it leans it on the tank, it leans it on the healer, and if the healer, like in a Ruby life pool, is fortified, it's explosives and something else, then you're really dealing with a lot of healing, and they might not have the GCDs to get them all on pulls. It can be very, very tough. So Blizzard has said they see this. They're going to look into this, and they might make some changes. I do like the idea of getting a buff from hitting explosives, whether it be small. It could be a 0.1% haste buff every time you hit explosives, lasts for 5 seconds, something like that. A 1%, a 2, any little buff that gives you an incentive to get the explosive. Even as a DPS, you might have the incentive to get the explosives to do a little more damage then. So it might be beneficial to get them instead of just focusing purely on damage. Storming, because we are in a melee strong season 1, so a lot of melee are good. Storming can be a pain if you start bringing 3 melee, or if you're bringing a melee healer such as a monk, or you're bringing in a holy paladin. They can be tough when you start having storming. It can be rough trying to dodge the swirls. Grievous is always just a healer one, and quaking is just a pain for everybody. So they have announced that they are looking into this, and maybe there will be some changes, but all we know for sure right now, No seasonal affects. You will not have to worry about thundering, which is great. I could have a season off just to see if they come up with something else. I do like affixes. It does change it, but some of them, as they've already taken some out, like necrotic, some just aren't good or are very tough, especially when there's nowhere to kite or run or get away from. So if you have necrotic sacks, you can't drop them, you just wipe, which can be a pain too. Or if you have certain pulls, a guardian druid can do it better because their one in card used to negate necrotic until it dropped or until it was over, so you didn't have to worry about that. It didn't count as healing. So little switches, little things like that. But I do think it's great they are looking at this. It would be nice to see what they're going to come up with, but that's the news right there. No seasonal affix coming up season 2. I wanted to now talk about some of the outliers. I've gone in Warcraft logs, and these are the top performing specs. I cut it off at 95. That was a cut, so it went from 100 to 95. This is the 95th percentile. So these are the top players doing this. This is Mythic Plus, all dungeons, season 1, last 2 weeks. And Sub Rogue is just out there crushing. So Sub Rogue is doing very well. Shadow Priest has made it to 2nd spot now. So Shadow Priest is actually moved to 2nd. Preservation Evoker is up there as always. They're performing really well. Even with the nerf, they're still performing well. Fire Mage is their star child. It is like literally the cover of a lot of their things. So Fire Mage is usually good. They did have to buff it at the beginning of the season, but it is doing well. Druid is doing well now. Balance is doing better. They made changes at the beginning as well. Enhancement Shaman doing very well still. The other Rogue Spec Outlaw doing well. Assassination, I'll show you where it landed up. Havoc Demon Hunter doing well. But if you really notice, no tank comes into play until Prop Pally all the way down here. So there's no tank really outlaw. Well, there are 3 tanks still in here, so half of them still made it into the top, but no tank comes in until after Feral Druid. So Outlaw Rogue, Havoc, Resto. So there's 2 healers in. The cutoff is actually, you'll see in a second, one more healer is just below this line. But it is just below the 95, so it didn't make the cut. Very close, but not quite. But we do have three tanks in here, being the Prop Pally, the Protection Warrior, and the Blood DK. Both these are really good self-sustained tanks, the Prop Pally and the Blood DK. They can heal themselves. They can do some crazy numbers. I've seen, tanks in 25s doing like 35k HPS as a Prop Pally and still doing DPS at like 35k as well. So it's kind of crazy. Blood DKs are always going to have high HPS. That's just how they tank. But they're a lot of fun to see numbers spike at like 140, 150k HPS. Just a fun tank to see that. Destro Warlock has moved up into the number 1 Warlock spec as well. So if you take a look, you'll notice 2 Rogue, 3 Druid. And then bits and pieces of a little every other spec almost. But yeah, it's definitely a good time to play Druid Season 1. A lot of them are very viable, except one spec of Druid, which, is obviously not on that list. It will be on this list, the bottom part. This is the 95th percentile, and this is the cutoff at 95. As you can see, Disc Priest has moved up a ton. Disc is just outside the 95. So it's come a long way. Brewmaster Monk is another tank that's very close. They are doing very well. Lot of damage you can get out of a Brewmaster. It's a tremendous spec. They are looking at some buffs for a lot of classes. Frost in 10.07 is getting buffed. Affliction is getting buffed. Ret is getting buffed. So your worst spec left will be Serve Hunter, which is shocking because I've seen some Serve Hunters do some phenomenal damage. But they are down at the 91.56. So they are getting a bit low too, but they have looked at the bottom 3. And do I think there will be a meta change? Absolutely. In 10.07, you're going to see some movement on this. Ret's going to bump up. Prop Pally is already the number 1 tank. It's going to move up even farther. You're going to see, my prediction is going to see Shaman move up. They are reworking Shaman as well. Resto, it is getting a nerf/buff. They just buffed Elemental, so it is getting up there as well. But I do expect that there will be a change in the meta. Ret will jump up. I predict Ret will jump up and Resto Shaman will jump up. I think Resto Shaman is going to do very well. I don't know what they're doing. I haven't checked out. I'm going to look later on at the PTR for an Elemental Shaman to see if they're actually changing the tree at 10.07 when that comes out. Or if they're going to do, 10.1. Or if they're just going to leave it. So you're going to see quite a few outliers here, which will be fixed come the next patch. Well, next patch when they launch it. So down at the bottom here, though, we didn't get quite through. You see the 2 shaman specs. Elemental, it's just because of the class tree. They actually do really good single target damage or really good AoE damage. You just, because of the class tree, you can't pick both. That's why they're down here. Otherwise, they would be up. After the MDI, I'm going to suspect you're going to see a lot more Unholies, and you're going to see them bump up. Unholy is phenomenal if played with a priest. Any priest will do, but Unholy and priest with the PI do really well together. Arms Warrior is really doing well, so you're going to see them jump, I think, a bit. The Hunter specs could definitely use some work. Yeah, this is the time usually where you see Hunters down the bottom. Usually they are in Season 1, so if you're a Hunter, don't fret too much, because all the stats are good for Hunter. Usually in Season 2, 3, they start really picking up. And then by Season 4, they're way at the top or close to the top as well. Happened last time in Shadowlands. You'll just see it again. Holy Priest was kind of shocking. He's down this far. It's a really good healer. It just doesn't do the damage that the other ones do. The Devastation Evoker, the other part 2 Evoker. Yeah, it's just with the affixes that you're not getting the damage out. Unfortunately. So they have a lot of hard cast abilities, which with a lot of the affixes do not play well with Devastation Evoker. Unfortunately, it is a fun class to play. I enjoy playing my Devastation Evoker. It just can't easily do the damage as other ones. Now, some, you can do. But again, I think they just need to buff a little bit on it. You don't need to go crazy on Devastation, but just a little buff would help out. And mainly, I think it's to a single target. They could use a little bit more buff. Guardian Druid. This is your Druid outlier. It just outside of your major cooldowns. It can die very, very quickly to magic. So you have to watch out on that. It is it gets squishy. It's probably the squishiest tank outside of like big cooldowns like Incarn. And I played the tanks. I enjoy Guardian Druid. I like the Raze build too. It just, outside, you just can crumble. Mistweaver Monk, it was getting buffed. It did get buffed multiple times. It still is kind of at the bottom, but it's still it's a good class, but it is better at raid healing throughput than it is at Mythic Plus healing damage. If you have Fist Weaving, it is just better at raid healing. That is. All right, there's the list for healing, 95th percentile. Mistweaver Monk, way up here. You can see they do a ton of healing, a ton. They are a little bit below Preservation Evoker, but Preservation Evoker has some great healing buttons. As long as everyone stacks up correctly, they can do some tremendous healing. But Mistweaver does exceptional raid healing. They are just crazy. So that kind of gives you the outliers, gives you an idea where everyone's sitting. That's the bottom. This is the top. Again, Rogue is always good. It's because Rogue has some great defensives, and Rogue usually has a spec that's doing really good damage. Now remember, this is Mythic Plus. Raid, I don't believe they're as good in Raid as they are in Mythic Plus. I believe there's some outliers for that. Yeah, I just don't believe the Rogues in the 90. So it drops down in Raid. Shadow Priest is killing it. This is for all bosses, so that's kind of a one. Devastation Evoker jumps up in Raid, which is funny because it just doesn't seem like it's quite as good. But yeah, there's a couple bosses where Devastation plays really well. But yeah, you can see Rogue drops from top spot down to 4th spot, and then Outlaw drops behind Frost. So Frost and Raid does really well too. Unholy pumps a lot too, but it just depends on the boss. Again, boss specific. So looking at all raid kind of isn't really the greatest. Like Taros is a full on just single target boss, and you can see Beastmaster just crushes Taros. It is because everyone does have to move, everyone has to shift, and Beastmaster is just doing damage the whole time. It's crazy. Survival Hunter doing really well. There's your Unholy DK up there. So specific things, specific damage profiles work really well. And then you can see Primal Council. That's a full cleave, 4-person cleave fight. Is Balanced Druid just dropping Star Surge and Starfire, and yeah, they do well at those. Shadow Priest again up there for that, but Balanced Druid 200k H or DPS, just crushing on those. And Broodkeeper would be another kind of multi one. Shadow Priest doing well on that as well. But it's kind of a range multi. It's a weirder fight to gauge. I really one with kind of both is Raz, and Sub Rogue does really well at both. A lot of single target, a lot of AoE as well. I guess Aragon's another kind of single target fight, but that's just blast for fire. So again, different specs, different play styles, different really good at different things. Balanced Druid, you can see at the bottom on this one. It doesn't fit into Balanced Druid very well. So these are kind of your outliers again at the almost end of season 1. Rogue again doing really well. A couple great healers. Shadow Priest doing really well. If you have any questions on how Mythic Plus is going, or what you have any issues with Mythic Plus, definitely let me know. As always, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys are thinking, how you're enjoying the season. If you have anything else, just shoot it in the comments, and I'll try to respond to you as soon as I get it. But this is Deflect, Firm but Fair Gaming. Check out Twitch, streaming on Kick. Check out to subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you'll get the next videos. And we'll see you in the next one.